So, I watched My Adventures with Superman, and it's okay. I'm going to get the bad stuff out of the way, because I do have a lot of good to say about it. Definitely more good than bad. First up, and it's kind of obvious, this show has zero budget. In preparation for watching My Adventures, I rewatched the 90s animated series. You can look at the backgrounds and just tell a massive difference in quality. I'm not saying the show looks terrible, it's just obviously cheap. The second thing is Jimmy. I don't like him. Look, I've written dumb characters like Chester and Little Miss Steele. Please read Little Miss Steele on Tabbas for free. Chester is the dingus of the band, and he's not extremely annoying. Anytime he does something dumb, Amy pinches his ear and brings him back down to earth. Jimmy doesn't have that. In episode 2, there was one scene where Jimmy was actually enjoyable, and that's when he was urging Lois to flirt with Clark. And I'm like, oh, great, he's not stupid 100% of the time. And then, boom, he cock blocks Clark. Excuse me, I mean Clark Blark. This is a kid-friendly show. I hate the trope of two characters about to kiss and are interrupted by literally anything. Yes, even Teen Titans did this, and I didn't like it there either. Look, it's only 2 episodes. So maybe Jimmy gets better, okay? But as he is, he's extremely annoying to me. Pop quiz. What's this character's name? And if you said anyone other than Slade, congrats, you are normal. Yes, this is Slade. I know this is a different take on the DC characters and universe, but Slade is not something you can afford to do wrong. Where's his mask? Like, the iconic mask. Where is that? He's just not wearing it at all? Like, I get he's in a public setting. It would look weird if he's wearing a mask. But during the fight, you don't have him put it on? During the interrogation at the end of episode 2, he's not wearing it? Like, where is the mask, bruh? Seriously, the only reason I know this is Slade is the subtitle said so. Like, yeah, he's got the color scheme, he's got the white hair, but he's supposed to be old, man. You mean to tell me Teen Titans can build up Slade as this mysterious figure with a sinister voice and never reveal his face? Other than that time he was a skull. Then, you got My Adventures with Superman that just shows us this. A yassified Slade. His voice also just does not match who Slade is supposed to be. It's not very good. Just very, very bad. The Slade of Teen Titans would destroy this imposter. But enough about the bad. Let's talk about some neutral stuff. Unlike the 90s series, My Adventures with Superman, which I'm just going to abbreviate to Moz, is definitely aiming for a bit of a younger audience. I felt like I was watching the Pokemon anime. Even the voice acting makes me think of the English dub of Pokemon. I mean, freaking Lois sounds like she is trying to challenge Ash to a battle. Like, she just absolutely sounds like that. This time, the Superman cast is a lot younger than they normally are depicted. Everyone seems to be around early 20s, when in the 90s series, I kind of guessed that everyone was in their 30s, even though they act like kids. But I mean, hey, it's a kid's show. I mean, that's just kind of a given, right? And lastly, let's talk about the race swaps. Plural, because there are multiple, and I'm sure there's more to come. I'm putting this in the neutral section instead of the negatives because I know some people don't mind it, some people hate it, and some people like it. So I'm just going to go through each of the character designs that have changed drastically and just kind of give my thoughts on it. Lois doesn't count since she just looks like she got a tan. If they want to say maybe she's got some Latina in her, I guess they could work with that. But I mean, honestly, to me, just looks like she has a tan. She's not even that much darker than Superman, than Clark. It's not much of a difference. Jimmy, on the other hand, is yet another redhead that's been blackwashed, which is, it's strange that it happens so often. Like, I'm telling you, Hollywood has got something against gingers, and my ginger friend would be very be very upset about another character representation for his kind that has been changed. Yes, I'm labeling gingers as a separate kind. What are you gonna do about it? Mr. White has ironically been blackwashed too.
I am the one who knocks.
And even Livewire is significantly darker than her 90s depiction and comics depiction as well. And me personally, I don't mind when side characters get swapped that much. It's only really the main heroes, villains, and love interests that I care about getting the most accurately. Part of adapting material is making it recognizable to people that it is the material. It may be a different take on it, but it is the material. It's like if they made Joker black. You know what I mean? It just wouldn't work. It would not work, man. But speaking of designs, let's move on to the good about this show. Clark is this lovable, clumsy dude who has very little control over super strength this time around. He's characterized as being helpful to anyone he meets, and he even repeatedly fixed doors in the bakery because he keeps breaking them by accident, which I think is a fantastic little character thing. The super suit, though, outstanding. I like this design. It's very good. It's nothing brand new, right? It's still, you got to make it look like the Superman suit, but it is pretty good. I think the little slight color changes of the blue, how some parts are darker and brighter than the other, very slightly. I think that makes some good variety in the costume rather than just, solid blue. If you could say anything about the 90s series, it's that the suit was very plain. And that kind of went for a lot of characters because, at the time, you couldn't be super detailed with animation because the technology wasn't there and they didn't have infinite money either. So having a bit more detail in the costume, I think, is pretty good. I enjoy that. When Clark goes full Superman Kal-El mode, he is much more firm and courageous than you might expect from his day job, how he presents himself there. Obviously, I don't think him being clumsy and kind of awkward is an act. I think that's actually his character. I think that's how he acts. But whenever he goes into Superman mode, he drops that. He drops that and focuses more on actually, protecting people. Overall, I feel like they nailed how a younger Clark Kent would act and look like in this series. I think Moz is doing a good job of showing how a younger Superman in the Daily Bugle, in Metropolis, would act. His first year as Superman, effectively. I think this is a very interesting way to look at it. Lois is a bit controversial. Again, some love her design. Me. Some don't. And that's understandable when you look at her in a 90s series. This Lois is very high energy as well. Very eager to prove herself and takes charge in cases. Whereas in the 90s and in most comic material, she's kind of already established as a good reporter. Again, this is a younger take on the character, so she's not quite there yet. She's trying to get there, and I think that is interesting. I like this version. I think she's fun, she's cute, and her dynamic in the trio feels good. I think, I will admit, the constant blushing every time she talks to Clark and vice versa gets a bit old. I had the same complaint about the Owl House with Luz and Amity, which I might make a video on in the future. But they were always blushing anytime one person said something, not even flirting. It's just anytime they said a sentence, the other would blush. Then there's Livewire, also known as Leslie Willis, which is unrecognizable at first from her 90s depiction. In that show, she was a radio host who hated Superman and pretty much all authority, gets struck by lightning, and somehow gets electrical superpowers? I never really liked that origin story for her. I like the radio host aspect, but getting struck by lightning and getting powers is kind of dumb. And in this show, she's a high-tech thief who already has powers that are controlled by this crystal on her back. And the second you mess with that, she loses control and starts turning blue, which I really like that. That's the moment where I was like, yes, this is definitely Livewire. I didn't recognize her because she looks so different, but I do like the design. There's one thing I miss about the old Livewire, and that is her personality. If you haven't watched the show, she is extremely kind of, sassy, a little bit more high energy, and she's just there to have a fun time. Like, she's not there to necessarily make money or rule the world. She's just doing whatever she wants and having fun with it. And she hates Superman because he's an authority figure. Just hates authority in general. So that makes her, like, not really a complex villain, but she is fun. This one, she's not really that fun in this series, but I do like her character. I think she'll probably end up getting redeemed. I have a suspicion that she will end up being lovable somehow. She might just sacrifice herself. When the rest of the series drops, I'll comment on this theory. And let's just spitfire some more characters here. Jor-El looks like he's seen some crap, man. He looks like he's been through 10 wars. This design is so cool. Like, I can't. I want to see more of this character. I want to see him talk to Clark more. Waller is revealed at the end of episode 2. That's cool. Slade is working for her, so even if I hate his design and voice, the concept is cool. Slade being hired by Waller to, you know, do whatever she's trying to do. Typically go against the superheroes, the Justice League. I think that's really cool. The robots are kind of generic, but not, you know, not bad by any means. I think it was a cool first fight to have Superman fight against robots. I mean, that's what his first fight was in the 90s series. He was fighting against this robot mech suit. And that's what he's doing again here. I think that's cool. I think that lines up with. I also really like how the kids in the bakery act as street reporters to Lois. Their debate of how Lois is gonna pay them is like really cute and just wholesome. Talking about, you know, class tutoring and snacks. Very good, very good. Clark's parents are also decent characters. They're loving, accepting, and not holding him back from discovering the truth about who he is. Not really anything too complicated with him, but I think they are handled pretty well. And Mr. White is so over Lois and her high energy reporting. I think his character is just, he's already done. He's already so over it, and this is just the beginning. Now, Maz does something that I've been begging to see another cartoon do well since Teen Titans. And there have obviously been a few more, but it's something about an action cartoon that does visual humor that just makes Teen Titans so much better. Like, Teen Titans compared to any other superhero cartoon of the time, before, and today, it stands out because it is an action show that is not afraid to exaggerate its characters. The proportions get crazy. When characters are scared, they shrink down. When they're angry, their heads get huge and turn red. Maybe they grow horns and stuff like that. You know, that's the kind of thing. The best scene that I could use to describe this is whenever Cyborg is mad and he's playing video games. Raven tries to talk to him, and instead of just having him say, "I don't want to talk about it," and shoot her down, he literally shoots her down with a cannon, and she's in like this plane, and you see her fall in the background with a parachute. That is storytelling in the best form, when you do it in a funny way that's so unique and so detached from like the show's reality, but you still get it because you have established that's how this show works. That is what I like to see, and this show does a little bit of that. Not like anything to that level from Teen Titans, but their faces do go kind of like two dots and flat mouth mode. They sort of do a little bit of funny movement with a kid in the bakery. One of the kids climbs a drink machine like Spider-Man, and it's just going on in the background. No one's talking about it. Like that kind of stuff is good. That's what elevated Teen Titans from other shows, and I hope they do more. I hope they lean into it even further and just make this show, you know, a lot of humor, a lot of visual humor specifically, but also having good action where it needs to be. And speaking of action, the fight scenes are pretty good. I'm comparing them to the ones in the 90s, which admittedly felt slow and not as impactful as the Batman 90s series, for instance. Which I understand it's kind of difficult to do at the time for Superman because, you know, he's invincible. It's hard to make fight scenes with an invincible character interesting. So a lot of times what ends up happening is just Superman gets hit by everything. He doesn't dodge. He just takes every hit. And it gives this sort of false sense that, oh, he's down. Oh, wait, he gets back up. You know what I mean? Like, it happens a lot in the 90s animated series. I always thought the fight scenes were a little bit lacking in that. While the characters and the stories were great, I felt like the fight scenes often weren't as good. There were a few ones. Metallo versus Superman was a fantastic fight. I will say that. And I wonder if they're going to bring Metallo into this series. But again, this show has a low budget, so I don't expect anything insane. We just have to, you know, we just have good. That's what I'm going to say. It's just good. It's nothing insane. It's not blowing my mind like Invincible. Mind blowing. Invincible. Now, the story is starting off pretty good. Livewire and her team are stealing robots, but it never says exactly who they're stealing it from. You know, it could just be the military, like it mentions, or it could be Luthor. It could be Luthor funding these robots, and you know, Livewire has stolen them to sell them to whoever, and the buyer fell through. The buyer did not show up, and that has her in hot water. You know, not to mention she lost quite a bit of the robots in the process of getting away. So I think that's an interesting, you know, plot to start off with, is that the villain is on the downfall already. Like, the villain starts off at a weak, and there's this other group with Slade that are attempting to, you know, make her pay for it in some way, and possibly to bring down Superman as well. I also like the misconception that Livewire has that Superman and and Lois and Jimmy are working for Slade and Waller. I think I like that. I like that idea. I could totally see why she would think that, and it makes total sense. Livewire is also just insane. She plants C4 under the city, like a lot of C4 under the city. That is classic villain stuff. So for her to be willing to do this, they're gonna have to do a lot to redeem her, because that's insane. That's psychopathic for her to do. And she was willing to detonate it as well. She tried twice to set it off. So you know, she's kind of evil. She's kind of evil already. And in the comparison, it makes Slade seem like the good guy here, which is odd. But again, he's working for Waller, so he's just going to do whatever Waller tells him to get the money. And that gives me the idea that their goal is to use Livewire, maybe to possibly they capture her, so maybe they're going to use her to power their devices. And what for? To take down Superman, of course. Waller has always been a huge antagonist to the Justice League. I don't expect anything different here. I'm sure the writers will shake things up a little bit, but I don't expect her to be the good guys, as Slade suggests when he's talking to Livewire. It's just not something I expect. I think Waller is always, you know, sort of an antagonist who maybe turns around at some point, or maybe in this take of Superman's story, she doesn't. Maybe not redeemed at all. We'll see. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the first 2 episodes of My Adventures with Superman. Not a bad start, far from perfect, but not a bad start at all. The low points are, without a doubt, the way they handled Slade and Jimmy, plus the animation is great looking because of the $0 budget. But again, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. The high points make up for it, in my opinion. Clark and Lois are great characters, fun personalities that make the story a fresh and new take on the Superman story. The series is nearly completely different from the 90s series. It is very, very different in not only tone, presentation, character, designs, personalities. They're also quite different, and not exactly unrecognizable. But I will say, if this show changed up some of the designs and the names, I probably wouldn't recognize it as a Superman story. Like if this was Hyperman, and you know, Slade was Jade or something, you know what I mean? Like if they were different characters, change of designs a little bit, I probably wouldn't recognize this as a Superman story. This could have very well been its own original story with how different it is. But because it is Superman, like I'm like, oh yeah, this is similar to that. This is similar to this. And I know that's probably why a lot of the hardcore fans of Superman probably won't like this series, because it does do so many different things. I like to give fresh takes a chance, and so far I don't hate this show. I do like the first 2 episodes. I think they're pretty good. I think it's a good start, and I just hope going forward that they fix some of the issues that I mentioned and make a compelling plot to go along with the Clark X Lois shipping. That alone is not enough to make a series interesting, especially to kids. Kids have to have action, blowing up, fight scenes every episode to keep their attention span. So you're gonna have to do more than that. You're also gonna have to make a plot that's compelling, that makes you, care about Superman and who he's trying to save. So far, I think they're doing a decent job of that, and only time will tell going forward. Thanks for watching. If you want to check out my own writing, feel free to read Demonico, a hybrid novel about a half-demon boy who has to team up with an Exorcist girl to save his soul from a demon's contract. Or you can read my brand new novel, Little Miss Steel, a story about a girl with superhero parents who has to learn how to use her mother's powers, father's gadgets, to rescue Miss Steel from the mysterious death metal. Follow on my social medias. I just made a Threads account. Until next time, peace out.